Greetings, my fellow psychonauts. For a few weeks now, I've been analyzing my defiance against authority. So let me just share what happened. In mid-August, I had received a message that I had to go to, in Germany, they call this organization Jugendamt, which is kind of similar to Child Protective Services, but better. So earlier in the year, I had gone to them because I have my youngest child. He's 16 years old and has autism. And because of school and work, I couldn't take him out as often as I would have liked. One of his teachers suggested that I go to the Jugendamt because they offer a service that someone will come and pick him up once a week and take him out for a couple of hours. I said, oh, that's a good idea. So I went to them. I started the process, but it was taking a long time. I think I started in February or something, and it was already August, and I still hadn't heard anything. So finally, I received a notification for an appointment. I went, and it was a different person that was taking over the file of my son. I explained to her that I'm currently doing a master's program, and because of work, I do not have enough time to take my son out, and I would like to have someone to help him. So the person that was going to help my son was already there. This was a person that also works at the school. My son goes to an autism school, and he knows my son, so he was going to be the one taking him out once a week. Well, he happened to mention that he was going on vacation sometime like in the fall, and I mentioned as well that I was going also on vacation late September and in October. Well, this new person that was taking over the case, she wanted to insert herself way more than I had requested. She wanted to start setting up appointments every 2 weeks and all this stuff. And I told her, wait a minute. I have 2 adult children. My ex-husband, the child's father, lives a few minutes away from me. I don't need to organize when I'm leaving the country with you. I don't have time to be coming to these appointments because I need the time for school. So I told her no, I was not cooperating. And she started sending me messages, emails that I need to organize with her and all this stuff. And I told her, I am not going to be cooperating. I only want the help that I requested and nothing more. Well, she threatened me that she was going to take me to court. And I replied back, go ahead. I am not going to cooperate. So I didn't realize that my defiance was starting to show up. I was getting triggered. And sure enough, I get a letter in the mail that I have to show up in court. So the court date was for August 21st of this year. Luckily, I didn't have to work that day. But I had a lot of homework assignments to do. And I was not a happy camper. I was pretty pissed off. Now, by this point, I had already taken a course on mental disorders and antisocial behaviors. And when I got triggered, I recognized the behavior. So I became aware that I have a defiance against authority. I went to court. Since I'm the kind of person that I've already been in this healing journey for 7 years, so I tend to become the observer because I want to understand what I do when I get triggered. So since this was the first time me acknowledging that I had a defiance against authority, I stepped back I allowed myself to show my shadow because I wanted to understand, where did this behavior come from? So I showed up to court. Okay, so let me tell you what I did, because this behavior tends to be rather disruptive. I understand it now. So when I got the letter, it was saying that if you want a German, like if you need a translator, to let them know. And I thought, oh, goody, I have something I can play with. So I just sent a message to the assistant of the Jugendamt that I need a translator, right? And she replied back, oh, no, you have to tell the court. I was not going to tell the court. I just sent that message out so at least they knew that I attempted to get a translator, right? So I showed up to court. I was pissed. My shadow, if anybody was there at the courtroom, they would have seen my shadow in full display. And I didn't give a fuck. So the young lady from the Jugendamt came with a trainee. And what do you know? The judge also had a trainee sitting next to her. And I thought, oh, goody, I have an audience. So the judge started talking in German. I interrupted her. And I said in English, I need a translator. Now, I do understand German. I'll admit, I do speak German. But as I said, I wanted to understand this behavior, so my authentic self stepped away, became the spectator, because I wanted to see what this behavior does. Because this is the first time I acknowledged it, and I wanted to see, what does it do? So I let it do what it needed to do. So I interrupted the judge. I said, I need a translator. And then the other faces were like, oh, fuck. And I told the lady from Jugendamt, I sent a message that I needed a translator. This was your responsibility. You're the one that brought me to court. So then the judge spoke to me in English, and she said, is it okay if we speak in German, and whatever you don't understand, you can just interrupt? I said, okay, I'll do that. So the lady from Jugendamt began talking, saying that I was not being cooperating with them because I didn't want to give them when I was leaving the country. I explained to the judge that I have 2 adult children. My ex-husband is like a 15-minute bike ride from where I live. So in the car, it would be 5 minutes. I could handle all this with my family. I didn't need to share with her when I was leaving the country and to organize who was going to take care of him, because I could do that with my family. I had already been doing that before she got involved. So I explained this to the judge. Then she started going off talking to me, and I was like this. I was not even acknowledging her. I was just shaking my head when she was talking. And then I kept interrupting her, talking over her, getting louder. And then it got a point where I was pounding as I talk, every syllable that was coming out of my mouth. I was telling her that she was taking my time away from school. And I told her, I explained to you that I am going through a master's program. So this was me being disruptive. The judge I could tell by the look on the judge that she did not want to deal with me. And she kept trying to calm me down to let her talk. And I didn't. I refused. I kept talking over her, yelling at her. And finally the judge said, okay, can we do this? Can we just put that you're going to be gone? Because she asked me for the dates that I was traveling to, when I was leaving the country. And the lady from the Jugendamt said, can you please say the dates you're leaving? And I was like this, no, I will not be sharing that information. So the judge was like, okay, can we do this? Can we just say that you're going to be gone for the last 2 weeks of September? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And then she just dismissed me. So after I got home, I mean, don't get me wrong, I was appalled at my behavior. But at the same time, I was like, wow, that side has a lot of power. How can I harness this? So after getting triggered and recognizing that I have a defiance against authority, I began to ask myself questions. One thing I tell people, when you get triggered, these are like gold mines. Oh, these are gold mines. Think of healing as a game. So I've been working on this healing process, looking at healing as a game. You go through levels. So say level 1 is getting to acknowledge that you have a shadow. And then you start working on the levels. So I have different levels and different techniques on how to get you to understand your shadow. I had started a group that I was testing out the method. With the first group, I was able to have more time with them. I gained I was only being an observer. I wasn't doing anything scientific, just observing. All I'm doing right now is just observing because I'm still not sure in which area of psychology do I want to specialize in. There's so many ways that I can go because of the traumas that I have. So I have firsthand understanding of a lot of traumas that I'm not sure which area I want to specialize in at the moment. But definitely psychedelics. I definitely want to do psychedelic therapy. So anyways, look at triggers as gold mines. As gold mines and understanding your shadow and behaviors. Because a lot of people do not know that they are displaying behaviors that are not normal. Well, normal according to society, right? And it's about asking the questions. When you get triggered, ask yourself, okay, I acknowledge this behavior. Where did it come from? So I began asking myself questions. When was the last time that this behavior showed up in my life? And I realized it happened last year. I'm not going to get into the details on that one. I'm going to have a special episode at some point about this organization, the psychedelic organization. But that's for later. I think I'll share that later. I'm not ready to share that one. But anyways, I realized my defiance was already starting to pop up because when it got triggered last year. So last year I got triggered a lot. Last year was when I acknowledged my shadow for the first time. And I spent all of last year and all of this year trying to understand my shadow. And the way that I've been understanding my shadow is by acknowledging when I get triggered, looking at the memories that come up when I start asking questions. So when you start acknowledging, like let's say you get triggered, you acknowledge it, start asking questions, and start looking at the memories that come up. Because as I tell people, these are clues in understanding your behavior. Where did it originate from? Look at it as a scavenger hunt. We're going to look at it as a game. So we're going on a scavenger hunt, trying to find the missing pieces and understanding where did this behavior came from. So I started going back. Okay, so last year I got triggered. I see that my defiance against authority was coming up because I felt that they were trying to silence me. then I went back, okay, when can you think of another time that this behavior came up? And it happened years ago when my children were young. They were still babies. They were under 2. And I had to take my stepdaughter. So my husband, my ex-husband now, but my husband then, had 4 children, 4 daughters from a previous marriage. And during that time, they were living with me. So I was taking care of, at that time, I still didn't have my last child. So I was taking care of 7 children, 3 of my own and 4 of his. And we were living far away from the school that they were attending. So it was a 45-minute train ride to get to where they were going to school. And I was dropping them off. I had this big stroller. So the 2 younger ones were sleeping. Like they were laying like on top of each other, but not really. They were asleep. They were not uncomfortable. They were peacefully asleep in their stroller. I dropped them off. I got on the train to get back home with my children, minding my own business, when this German guy, around my age, 30s, started telling me in German, "Oh, look at them, they're getting squished, and how can you put your kids like that?" Mind you, my children were asleep. They were peacefully asleep. They were not bothered how they were sleeping. So, of course, I got triggered, and my instant reaction, and I told it in English because I'm not good at cussing in German, so he triggered me. And I told him, "Why don't you shut the fuck up and mind your fucking business, motherfucker? Why don't you crawl back out of that corner you came out of and shut the fuck up?" This was my reaction. So the German guy muttered something, went back to standing near the corner of the door, like near the entrance of the train. And he just kind of put his head down and just didn't say anything. So I'm like, okay, all right, okay. So I asked myself, okay, when was another time that this defiance came out? And so again, this was years ago. I think it was in 2011 when this happened. I'm not really sure on the date, but it was some time ago. And I was again with my children, and I was with one of my stepchildren, who was 11 years old at the time, I believe. We were coming home, and this racist started making comments at me. Ooh, that inflamed me. I didn't realize that it brought up my shadow. I recognize it now as I've been analyzing this defiance against authority. So he was making all these racist remarks against me. And what I did, the way that I reacted, of course, I started telling him stuff back. I ended up generating this as much mucus as I could in my mouth through my throat and all this stuff, bringing it out. And before I got out of the bus, I ended up spitting in him, and I got him like right between the eyes. Right. So this man, as I was getting off, he attacked me from behind, and he was trying to bash my head. I don't know what is it about men trying to bash my head against brick walls. My ex-husband tried to do it at some point as well, but that's another story. So he was trying to bash my head against this brick wall, and he ended up like ripping off my glasses. And so somebody from the bus ended up getting him back. Now, I didn't realize that when he like tore my glasses off that he ended up scratching me. So apparently I was bleeding. And I went back inside that bus. If I had a baseball bat, I probably would have attacked him. I mean, really. So I ended up reporting it to the police and all stuff. The guy never got caught. And so I thought, okay, ooh, that's okay. Mind you, I had not acknowledged this behavior this whole time period, only just this year. Through a trigger and understanding that I have this defiance against authority, that I began analyzing the memories by asking questions. So I thought, okay, I have a big time problem against authority. And I thought, okay, what's the next? When was the last time that I can remember this behavior showing up? Age 11, so my stepfather at the time, he had a brother that I disliked extremely, did not like him at all. And it was summertime. He was in the kitchen. They were talking. I forgot who else was there, but he was in the kitchen, and the refrigerator was here, and he was standing around, like really close to the edge of the refrigerator, like around here. And it was summertime. Me and my cousin, who was I was 11, so he must have been about 8 years old. And we went to the kitchen because we wanted to stick our heads inside the freezer. So our refrigerator had a small section where you can open just a freezer door. And we were sticking our heads in there. I was here and my cousin was here. So imagine the refrigerator's right here. The door was near me. The guy was sitting my stepfather's brother was standing right next to the door. And my cousin was next to me. And what did I do? I ended up slamming the door of the refrigerator. I went as hard as I could, and it ended up smacking him on the face. And I instantly blamed my cousin. I said, "Stevie, what did you do?" Right? And I took off. I was laughing because I thought it was hilarious. Again, age 11. For me, age 11, this was the time bomb where my antisocial traits started popping out. My stepfather was a very kind man. He always treated me like his daughter. Till this day, he's the person that I look at as my father. He has known me since I was 4 years old. But when I was 11 years old, so he's the one that I call dad. To me, he's my father. He's my dad. But at age 11, the traumas that I had earlier on in life and all the red flags that were already showing up in my childhood were really starting to explode. And there would be moments where I would go into these fits of rages, and I would start pounding on my stepfather's chest, hitting him. So I was getting really violent towards my stepfather. And I get emotional thinking about it. Because my anger was not towards him. I understand now. I understand the anger was towards my father now. But I was taking it out on other male figures. When I was 16 years old, I was really rebellious. I was already at home. I was getting out of control, but not in school. In school, I was very disciplined. Believe it or not, I was in the honor society and advanced placement. So school, I was excelling. But outside of school, I was being very rebellious. And one day I was I was aggravating my little siblings. So I had smaller siblings at that time. And my stepfather told me to stop harassing them. And I said no. Like, I was being defiant. And I said no. He ended up throwing a glass of water in my face. And my instant reaction was to punch him in the face. So again, I kept looking through my memories. When was the last time, how I was trying to trace how far back can I trace this defiance that I had through my behaviors, when I got triggered in the past. And I finally arrived to a memory when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I think I was closer to 8. My brother and I are from the same father, and he is a year and a half younger than me. I am the oldest. And he was telling me that these 2 older boys were picking on him. During this time, we were living in Alhambra, California. After school one day, mind you, I was about 7, 8 years old, 8, I think 8. I told him to point them out to me. So he pointed them out. It was this overweight Caucasian boy, must have been in the 5th grade, so about 10, 11 years old. And the other one was an African American, slender, taller than the Caucasian one. So I went up to the heavy-set boy, and I said to him, "You better leave my brother alone." And I remember he laughed at me. He said, "What are you going to do about it?" Now, I didn't even react. I didn't even say anything. I instantly, with my right foot, I kicked him in the groin really hard, that he instantly bent over in pain, like clutching his stomach. And he started to cry, telling me he was going to tell his mom. And I just was standing there, not reacting. And I said to him again, "You better leave my brother alone." And the other friend, the African American boy, as soon as I kicked him, he took off running. So then when I got to that memory, I looked at so when you get triggered and you start looking at memories, pretend that you are in a theater. Pretend that you're in a movie theater. You're just sitting back, watching this memory of you. And look at everything. Look at, what did you do? How did you react? What did the person do to trigger you? And why did it trigger you, and all this stuff? So I pretended I was just observing someone else's movie. And I was looking at this memory and I thought, okay, when he laughed at me and said, "What are you going to do?" I just reacted in violence. And I thought, okay, I already knew that this behavior came from my father, but I wanted to, where exactly did I learn this? What memory can I connect this behavior to? Now, when you start asking questions, the memories can come up like one after the other right after you ask, or it can take a few days, even a few weeks, or even months later, like memories will start popping up. But with me, because I got triggered and started asking the questions, the memories were kind of coming up. So since August till now, I've been analyzing all these memories. There's still a lot more memories, but I'm not going to get into it. And so I was looking at the memory. My instant reaction was to react in violence. And I don't know how many days after I started getting the memory that I had been asking for. And this is the memory that came, connected to my father. By this time, I was 6 years old. My mother had already left my father about 2 years prior. But my father was still harassing her. He was stalking her, following her. He would sometimes come out of nowhere and start beating her in public, and people would chase him away. And I remember as a child, I think I must have been suffering from PTSD or something, because I remember I was about 5, and we had gone to the store and we were getting ready to leave the store. I don't remember if I was with my mom, or I don't know which relative I was with. But before we were leaving the store, I started to freak the fuck out. I started to lose my shit and screaming, "He's out there! He's out there!" Because I got it into my mind that my father was out there waiting for us. Mind you, because he had already been doing this. So I was already trained in my mind that this was danger, right? Leaving a store was danger. So they had to drag me out of the store. Nothing they told me could have calmed me down. Even telling me that he was not there couldn't calm me down. They had to drag me out of the store, physically drag me out of the store. But so I remember that memory, but then came the memory I wanted. I was 6 years old. We were living somewhere in Los Angeles at this time period. And I needed shoes. So my mom took me to buy some new shoes. We were driving on the way back. I was sitting in the back in the middle. And then to my left, I see a car pulling up right next to us. And it was my father. And he was motioning like this to my mother. Now, my mother was petrified of this man, that she did what he told her to do. Mind you, they were not even together anymore. And as soon as he did this to her, my mom instantly pulled over to the side. So we pulled over. My father got in the front, came out, got into the passenger side of the car. I was sitting in the middle. My mom had one of those 1970 box cars. So there was no doors to exit from the back seat. You had to go out through the front. And my father turned to me and he said something to me in Spanish. Why aren't you greeting me? And you have this fight, flight, or freeze mode. Well, my instant reaction when I saw my father was to freeze. When I didn't reply back to him, he started yelling at me, getting angrier. I don't know what he was telling me, but he was telling me stuff, And I was just frozen there, not saying anything. And then my mom spoke up, and she told him to leave me alone. And my father didn't say anything. He reacted with a punch. He punched her in the face. When he punched her, my mom instantly opened the driver's side door and she yanked me out from the back through the front. We took off running. I remember turning around and seeing that my father had opened up the front hood of the car, and he was doing something to the car. When danger was over and my father had left, we went back to the car and my mom had to call one of her brothers because he had taken out some cables. So we couldn't go home. And, this is when I connected the behavior at 7, 8 years old to my father that happened at 6. So I realized then that I started to display my father's behavior as a 7, 8-year-old child. So far, this is the first time the first memory that I have traced it back that far back and have connected it to my father, to a behavior that I saw my father do towards my father. I'm still analyzing things, but I just wanted to share what I have been understanding about my defiance against authority. So yeah, like I said, look at triggers as opportunities to understand your shadow. Because sometimes when people get triggered, even they are surprised at the behavior, right? What do they start doing? What do some people start doing? Start apologizing. Oh, I don't know what came over me. I'm shocked at myself that I did that. I can't believe I don't understand. But let's say you get triggered. Stop making excuses for this behavior and try to understand it. And by understanding it is by tracing when was the last time that this behavior popped up in your life. Ask the questions. When you get a memory, analyze it as if you're watching a movie. Once you kind of understand it a little bit, okay, I get the connection. I get the clue. When was the last time before this? And just look at what pops up in your memory. Take it back. So this is where I'm at right now. So I started understanding that the defiance in August. We're now in October, the 19th of October. And this is what I have been understanding so far in this time frame about my behavior, my defiance against authority. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, my God, what a mess. How am I going to incorporate this behavior into something positive? How am I going to harness the energy of this behavior into something positive? What I'm doing right now, sharing this with you, that's how I'm using it right now to be something positive. Because I have this defiance, I can sit here and talk about what the bad things that I did as a person without any fear. This is how I'm trying to use this side and incorporating as part of my life. By sharing my behavior, maybe there's somebody that by me sharing my traumas, my behaviors, that maybe it resonates and make you recognize that there is a problem. I'm still working and understanding this defiance that I have and how can I work with it in a positive manner. I'm still processing everything, but I will share once I make important milestones in understanding this. But yeah, this is where I'm at so far in understanding my defiance. This is what I'm using right now in order to not be afraid of sharing what I was like when I was younger. Because I realize now that I had a lot of anger issues as a child, that I was already displaying them. My reaction to things was to react in violence. I would say that I was just not often. Because of an incident that happened with a dog with age 11, that kind of detoured me quite a bit from becoming an abuser. I would have been a type of abuser like my father, psychologically, physically abusive, because this would have brought enjoyment. You know, I understand now that me attacking other people made me feel good, made me feel gave me this temporary feeling of goodness, I guess you could, that I felt good about myself. I understand that everything was a reflection of me, right? It's not easy to acknowledge this part of me, but I'm understanding now the origins of this behavior. Anyways, till next time, my fellow psychonauts, wherever you are, happy tripping.